Okay, so this is the centering masterclass we're recording, so we'll probably put it on the internet. For those who don't know, my students here, of course, know. My name is Mark Walsh. I wrote a book on centering. I've taught it in my courses for many years, everywhere from corporations to lots of life coaches to war zones, Ukraine, and other places. This is kind of like a key tool. This is going to be a fast and furious, fairly advanced class. So I'm going to go through some basics, but pretty quickly. So if you're new to centering, you might want to look up some of my other stuff. This is going to be a little bit of a deep dive. So this is from our course, KEK, which is where we teach KEK teachers. Generally, these days, we put it in the sort of frame, generally, of nervous system regulation. Let me go past that. Great. So I always put centering now within the context of self-regulation, co-regulation, eco-regulation, and theo-regulation. Yeah, or the four bridges. Sometimes we call it the four reconnections, the tetrarchy. So centering, which I'm going to define, is sort of part of one kind of regulation. You could also think of these as four kinds of regulation, right? So it's not the only thing out there, and it needs to be in that context. For example, if you're in a nice community, or like I'm in beautiful Italian countryside today, centering will be easier and less necessary, right? So it's self-regulation, yeah. This is going to be dense. A couple of good quotes there. Wendy used to say the best gift you can give someone else is to get yourself together, right? So one way we could look at centering is getting yourself together, managing yourself. Yeah, why do you want to do centering? Centering is done via and has an impact on I, we, and it. So I is the subjective, we is the intersubjective, and it is the objective. So it makes you happier, healthier, better relations, and more effective. And it can be done via the physical body. It can be done more relationally, like co-regulation. And it's done with awareness itself, as well as actually physically changing yourself. Again, that's quite a strong sentence. If you've not come across centering before, you might want to just, go back and listen to that again. This is one way to talk about it is it improves the 12 functions of the body. So a body isn't just a brain taxi. A body is also how we perceive. It's how we think. It's how we relate. There's a whole bunch of things the body does. Centering improves all of them. So lots of different techniques. One way of thinking about it is just up and down regulation, right? So sometimes we'll say a quick up and down technique, stretch up the back, relax down the front. That would be like one super quick technique that I teach that could be called centering. Okay, but what the fuck is centering? So some people simply say that centering is self-regulation, which includes up and down regulation, right? Up and down are both metaphors, though, aren't they? A nervous system isn't really a thing that just goes in two directions. Some people use it more broadly as any kind of state changing, bit of a broad definition. And some people regard it more specifically as orientating to the center of mass of one's body. Just in terms of physics, though, that actually moves. So if you were to bend over, for example, your center of gravity would be outside your body. Yeah. So it's though the sort of Japanese hara or tantien, Chinese, it doesn't quite align with one physics. There'll also be other terms you hear like grounding, which are sort of more generally. Some people grounding just means like mindfulness, becoming present. Other people grounding would mean actually feeling the ground or bending your knees or bringing your attention down or bringing your intention down. These aren't the same thing. Again, this is an advanced class, so some of you are going following this. Again, if you're not following, it's okay. So it's not the center of gravity. Yeah, we can talk about that. And that has sort of, qualities in Chinese medicine and Japanese martial arts and things like that. But if we look at the very literal kind of sense of it in kind of Western culture, I'd probably avoid that. I probably would just refer to it as any kind of up or down state regulation. Yeah. Also there's some criteria I might add, like it's quick. So it's not that it takes an hour of yoga. And this is, of course, is the advantage if you're a business person or, a coach or whatever, is that you're doing something which is fairly fast. We often ask that people make centering invisible too. So while, it might, I don't know, I could do a, nostril breathing technique, that is not invisible. It might be awkward to do while driving. It might make you look like a big hippie. So I tend to stress centering techniques, which are, like relax the belly or use the peripheral vision, things that are kind of, safe, effective, and visible, quick. They're the basic criteria. Okay. So what we're really looking at is awareness and choice as ever. It's our basic sort of patterning, right? You have to be aware of a stress response to change it. You can't change all of the stress response, though, can you? So, specific definition of centering might be any technique which reduces the stress response quickly. But unless you're like an advanced level yogi, you probably can't like change your heart rate instantaneously. But you might be able to like soften your breath. Yeah, so the basic tools we have to work with: posture, breath, imagination, intentionality, which is like reaching. Yeah, imagine you're reaching out in all directions. One of my quick centerings I'll do a lot is relax while expanding. Why is that a brilliant definition of centering, or brilliant set of instructions for centering? Because it's very concise, it's 3 words, and it incorporates 2 very important components. So just relaxation is great because most stress response is tense, but we also have kind of collapse responses or fold responses. And if you just relax, you can totally collapse, right? So if we relax while expanding, it kind of covers both bases. If I'm doing centering for a mixed group, I will often be doing things that are good for different kinds of centering. So, let's take the balance in the ABC technique that you guys have learned from me. So those of you who are down, come up. Those of you up, like anxious people, come down. Does that make sense? Yeah, so like depressed people get up a bit, up people get down a bit, and in the middle is something relatively healthy, hence centering. Healthy, effective, and relational. To get the 3 things, I, we, it. Okay. Yeah, so in our embodied intelligence model, you need awareness before you can have choice. And managing yourself is very helpful if you're going to be empathic, if you're going to listen, if you're going to be of influence to anyone else. So as coaches, as leaders, as trainers, etc., it's super important. Have a look at my book for more on that model. Sometimes now I talk about practices, people, places, and purpose. This is again the sort of the big 4. It's another way of looking at it. Yeah, it's a self-regulation part we're looking at, and top-down versus bottom-up. So top-down is like you're doing a thing, right? Like a breathing technique. But you can also kind of follow the flow of your body. Okay, you can also be more intuitive about it. So there's different ways to go at it. So that's the general criteria we use. We're not just spacing out. We're not, music will change your state, but you don't always have access to music, do you? You can't always just stick your headphones on and start listening to heavy metal to wake yourself up. And the same with quick, like, going for a swim will change my state, but I can't always go for a swim. Yeah, so this is what we're adding to the kind of definition just for make it actually practical. That's a big definition by Paul Linden. You can look that up in your own time if you want to go really hardcore about it in his book, one of my teachers. So managing the physical stress response is another way of thinking about it. And as you see, this is a very mammalian response. It's a very natural response. Yeah, we are primarily working with fight flight. You can also work a bit with freeze, but a full freeze response is actually a hardcore trauma response. And a little bit of mobilization, tapping, upregulation, that kind of thing, maybe. But Helen, do you want to add anything on that? That we're generally not working with like full, dissociation or freeze or anything.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, the centering is a quick response, a short response, and if somebody's in a deep freeze, they're going to need a lot more work around that. They're going to need a lot more support around that. But you still can bring some things for people who freeze, but you might also send them into a sympathetic. You might take them up too high, let's say. So a little bit of care.
There is that window of tolerance between the 2, or window of learning, window of coaching, if you're in that context. Yeah, and you certainly don't just tell people to calm down, right? So as a coach, when we're centering, the key thing is our own state. Has anyone played the bananas game with me, when you use the word bananas to try and, bananas, bananas, bananas? Because it doesn't actually matter what you say, it's how you say it. Yeah, and you'll see this with like, anyone who works in emergency services that's good at calming people down, or working with old people with dementia or whatever, is they get very good just in their demeanor of centering. Yeah, they're centering the other person by being well regulated. I recently went to a divorce hearing while very, very relaxed and centered. And I'm pretty sure I calmed the judge down, who's used to dealing with really stressed out people. And I turned up and I'm like, I love everyone. So it's like, oh, I'm not used to this. I've done quite a lot of internal work before turning up. Yeah, but it was, bit my tongue a few times as well to inhibit that. Yeah, but, shouting out. Yeah, okay. So we could go more into trauma as a sort of related thing, but the key thing here is we're just doing state regulation using these things, right? There's not infinite tools you can use. There's not everything. Working with balance. Like if I wanted to be more centered now, I could, stand in a more balanced way. Yeah, working with acceptance and letting go, breath, of course. imagination. You know, I'm not against working with movement. We have to sit still to center, right? I might, for example, do a movement from my hips, yeah, like a Aikido kind of warm-up twist, then find my center that way. Yeah. And then if we go into relationships, we're going into co-regulation more formally. I think relaxed radiance, I have a thing for Polish athletes. Everyone has a weakness, that's mine. And babies, a very different kind of thing, but they actually have a similar quality. Beautiful people and babies have this relaxed radiance. So shout out for the Polish women's athletic team, which I follow for sporting reasons. Okay, there you go. There's some boys as well, just in case it wasn't just girls on it. We've got something for everyone, I hope. So it's actually a definition of attractiveness as well. We can actually think of centering as creating aesthetics. Yeah, if you see like an attractive actor, he's calm and expansive. Does that make sense? Like think of your sexiest human, man, woman, or dolphin. They probably have this. So actually, it creates a radiance or an attraction. So okay, we're not going into working with a craving today, but in terms of the fight-flight response, the other balance to it is craving. Yeah, I've just put some attractive people on the screen that may cause craving for you, that grasping response, which takes you out of center. Food, money, you know, there's other iPhones, there's other ways you can go into it. So if we're training people around centering, this is what we're training them to overcome. Fight or flight, but also grasping. Tanha in Buddhism. Buddhism has both sides. Western psychology only has one side. And Western psychology hasn't realized that our entire economic system is based on the other side, probably the reason. So yeah, that's what we're working with. And we could actually deliberately stimulate that if we were doing centering. We could deliberately stimulate that. Why might we want to deliberately, I'm going to sit down, why might we want to deliberately stimulate aversion or craving? Like, for example, if I wanted to work with aversion, I could work with, you know, flicking people's noses or throwing tissues at them or grabs or shouts. I've got like a whole hour-long class on how to do that safely with consent and calibration. Why would I want to do that though in the first place? How about this? So we can train people, you know? Like, frankly speaking, how are you going to train someone if you just make them relax? Like you go to a nice yoga camp or something. Well, yeah, great, but you're not learning anything, are you? So it's like putting weights on the bar in the gym. This is where our ethical principles of consent and calibration, of course, come in. If, you know, someone's alcoholic, you don't just wave a bottle of vodka at them, right? If somebody's had a serious trauma, you don't just, you know, repeat that. Okay, but what we could do is build it up gradually in a kind of CBT, what they call it, graded exposure kind of way, but using the centering. Yeah. So some work around centering is teaching centering, but in the face of obnoxious stimuli. So a bit more kind of advanced than just teaching centering on its own, but a lot more useful, right? Because you're actually teaching it in the context of something difficult. Otherwise, it's just like you go do a load of yoga, you feel relaxed, and you go out in the street afterwards, or your phone goes off afterwards, and you're immediately stressed, right? I've seen that happen so many times. Okay, so you can center with the body, as I said, body based or top down. You can use inquiry centering, like Wendy used to do this, like what would a bit more ease be like? What would a bit more ease be like? And notice centering doesn't mean I speak really slowly using a yoga voice. Like, you know, this is an advanced class. I'm moving pretty quickly today, right? But I'm doing that consciously through choice. I'm not doing that because I'm stressed. Yeah. Again, 4 types of regulation. Centering is one. You've seen all this before. Social regulation, co-regulation is actually more important for human beings. See a lot of that in Italy. It's a nice Mediterranean scene, I would say there. Yeah. Where do you reckon they're from? What are they eating? I'm reckon Italy. What do you reckon? Hard to know. Yeah. We have the BMI rule, the Be More Italian rule as well, don't we? So yeah, we can learn co-regulation from the Mediterraneans. They sure as fuck can't self-regulate, but that's another story, isn't it? That's another story. So everyone's got a strength. Eco-regulation, I like Slovenia. Anya's from Slovenia, so we'll give Slovenia some love. Lots of good eco-regulation in Slovenia. Slovenians are quite good at eco-regulating, I would say. So, good at that. Yeah, beauty nature orders. This is sort of the context. Sometimes when people do centering too much, they kind of shut everything down and they don't do enough of the expressing side. So we might suggest different practices for people that want to learn more of the emotional expression versus the emotional regulation. So because emotion has become a bit of a god and the sort of, American therapeutic model of express yourself at all times, be authentic, like a 2-year-old, often people just need to get themselves together. But there are people who are a little bit shut down, a little bit over controlled. And you've seen this in the martial arts world, no doubt, right? Like people who are a little bit too controlled, and they could probably go do some crazy hippie dancing or improv comedy or something, right? So we should always think of centering as being in balance with other things. Yeah. Yeah, so this will lead to the 2 traps, right? Becoming a robot or becoming a baby. They're the sort of 2 traps if you just go one side of that equation. We all regulate in different ways. The question is how. We all have methods to regulate. Yeah. Noxious stimuli is ways we work. You could work with ice water, the cold showers have become very popular for some people. Now, that might have a health benefit, but it also is a way to practice centering. For some people, it's like more physiological, but it could be a centering practice. You can work with pain, like we used to work with a lot of wrist locks in Aikido, obviously non-injurious pain. But you can also just think of someone who annoys you, right? Or think of someone you really, really want. You're going to work with YouTube. As a coach, you're often saying words to people. Again, consent, care, calibration, be careful. This is not a thing for everyone. Key distinction as well is we're practicing rather than just applying. Just marking a KEK exam that didn't have this distinction, actually. It's really important that we understand that there's a place you practice where it's non-consequential, where you can control it, like the cold shower or the yoga studio, and then the place we apply it, which is life. Oh, that guy's doing breath holds. That's another way to practice. So application versus practice, 2 different things. ABC is a centering method I use a lot. What I would say is there are lots of centering methods, and you can make up your own. That's an advanced thing I sometimes get students to do. All right, you should be able to have your own methods, your own techniques. I'm pretty much different every time I teach it, right? Like Helen, you see me almost different almost every week, right? Like because I'm just operating from a set of principles, I'm adapting it to the group, the culture, my amusement, blah blah blah. But ABC is kind of a classic. If anyone's watching this, going, yeah, but what is it? Just teach us a centering method. Today is the advanced class, but you can always look at my ABC technique, and that's the simple one. Yeah, keys. Okay, freeze. We're not going into so much. We could go, much more into that polyvagal theory, and a good concept to understand actually is that you have a baseline stress, like cumulative stress, and centering will just reduce like your incidental stress. Yeah, so obviously if you center every day, it's helpful to reduce that cumulative stress a bit, but in the moment, how high is your baseline stress? So if you've got a lot of stress in your life, you've got a lot of burnout, or just a lot of noisy environment, there's all sorts of ways that happens. Centering will help, but it's not a cure-all. Yeah. So it's like, on the other hand, if you're like, living in community and in nature, and you look after yourself and get enough sleep, you're just going to need to center less, right? So it's, you're working from a very different baseline. I got quite good at centering at one point. I almost used it as an excuse to just pile more and more stress on in my life. And that didn't work in the long run, did it, Helen? No. So, yeah, don't think of centering as anything else. And the other thing I'd say is we're in a stressful context. The context of modernity means that we lack co-regulation, theo-regulation, eco-regulation. Okay, we are cut off from our bodies by technology, cut off from community by industrialization and the death of community, cut off by from divinity, from godless, soulless modernity, and cut off from ecology by the move to urbanization, right? So as a result of those 4 disconnects, of course it's difficult. So don't beat yourself up if you're like, oh, why is centering hard? Centering's hard because we live in completely ridiculous times. We live in crazy making times. One thing I love about something is it's super empowering. It means that you take ontological responsibility. You are not a victim of your states. How you are, you have at least some influence over, if perhaps not total control.